Yes, I will introduce myself in our language. So, just to begin, Yat E, She Twittich Eatni Nishlip, Sanabitni Bashichi, Kia Ani Dachiche, To Glini Dashanella, Tehotoi Dant Nasha, Bedi Datsunil de Shagon Ado, Shema A Lena Jean Morgan Wilya, Shaja A James Morgan Wilya, She A Leona Morgan Yinishya, and uranium issues and nuclear issues Nashnish. So I just introduced my clans from my mother and my father and my mother's father and my father's father, which is a traditional way to identify ourselves. We call it a system of F. So F is like our family structure, but it also is a traditional way to relate to one another. And some of our clans are considered leader clans, and they have sometimes different jobs and different attributes. So I know my clans are, I have a couple of the original clans from our people, as well as my first clan is Bitterwater. I also have 2 water clans, so I feel somehow that my work is important to be for the protection of water. And then my first clan is like a teacher clan. It's also sort of a leadership clan, and so.
What means first clan, second clan? What does this mean?
Oh, we have 4 clans. So we receive our clan from our mother. It's a matrilineal society. So my clan is my mother's clan. And if someone has the same clan, they're like my brother or sister, or maybe my daughter or son. And then if it's my father's clan, there's a different relationship. So we have our mother's clan, that's the first clan, and then my father's clan is my second clan. My third clan is my mother's father, and then my fourth clan is my father's father. And so many times I meet people, and I'm usually their grandmother. So I'm a grandma most often, and I know the system is very similar to the indigenous people in Australia. I was sharing the system with some friends I met fighting uranium there, and they said our clan system is the same as theirs. But it is a system we still use today, and so this is very important for us to begin our talks with the introduction, because we know if a speaker is introducing themselves, we know immediately they are, our relative or this kind of thing.
Okay.
We try not to use the word tribe.
Okay.
Tribe, I use it still, but tribe the word is oppressive. It's because
it's a colonial word.
Yes, like in the Roman Empire.
Okay.
The tribes were outside the empire and would never have rights, and inside of so this is an old way to oppress people, to identify them as a tribe.
Okay, so this is a racistic word in the end.
There's many. The English language it can be very oppressive, and the structure, and people don't even realize how the words that we use today, how it's built into them to oppress and to classify people and to take away rights. But what I wanted to say is in my introduction I talked about our clans, and then I said my mother's name and my father's name. So in our culture, it's really important to identify where you come from. And so my mother, she's from a community, and it's called Nahadishkij. And so that area on my mom's side is very important to identify your ancestry. And then I didn't grow up there, but normally, traditionally, a family would take the mother's home. So the woman does not go to the man. The man would traditionally come to the woman's home, and the woman would be more of the decision maker. And so the man is like a guest, and helps too.
Oh,
So the just
opposite to our
Yeah.
culture.
and then I also introduced my father, James Morgan. They are from two communities that are on the eastern side of our land. So Diné people, we have a huge area of land, and so the language and some of the culture, it might be a little bit different on the west, and then on the east, maybe a little bit different, the dialect and some of the ways that we do our ceremonies and things like this, because it's based on the land also. So what sacred places are there, what mountains are there, what plants are there. As Diné people, I explained we have 4 sacred mountains, and the area there, our people will live on forever. We will not move, and so it makes it very difficult when industry and extractive activities occur which contaminate the land, because as indigenous people, we will stay on this land, and we're not going to leave it. With it, the area of our ancestors is a large area in the southwestern United States, but the government of the Navajo Nation, which is a United States recognized reservation that the United States holds in trust for us, meaning it's not our land under their law. We see it as our land. This is the land that our ancestors lived on, preyed on, protected for us to have in the future. The United States, they tried to move us, they tried to force us to leave, and we were not willing to go so easily. So there's a story about what's called the Long Walk. And so the United States, they tried to move our people, and they took us westward, and we stayed under the United States Army for 4 years in a place our people call Huilte, which was a place of great suffering. And it was too expensive for the United States to keep us there, and we were still fighting with the government until we signed a treaty in 1868 that guaranteed us to have our land that we originally were on to begin with. So in a way, the United States gave us our own land back.
You went back to this own land.
And yes, it was maybe a couple hundred kilometers away from the 4 sacred mountains, and so there's many stories and songs about the walk back home. And so our people, we are on the land that our ancestors are on, which is really important to understand. Many indigenous people are no longer on their traditional homelands. Of course, you have Manhattan and Washington, D.C., and these are all places that were taken. The entire United States, Canada, these were lands that were taken. The entire Western hemisphere, North and South America, are stolen lands, and there's hundreds, maybe thousands if you count South America. There's thousands of people who all want their land back, and so we're constantly struggling with the colonial system and fighting to keep our land, but also for basic human rights, such as clean drinking water, access to health care, education. And this is in the United States, the first in the Constitution, the First Amendment is freedom of religion. We don't call our culture religion. It's not an organized church, but in order to practice our culture, you can call it a religion, but it's always being challenged because places that are sacred to us are being desecrated by pollution and contamination. Just like in New Mexico, we have one of the 4 sacred mountains, which is Tzotzi. It's our sacred mountain to the south. It's in New Mexico. It's called Mount Taylor, and it has uranium on it and under it. And Mount Taylor right now, it's a place that had a lot of mining. There's no mining right now, but it's always going to be under attack. So in New Mexico, there's a sacred mountain we call Tzotzil, and it's our sacred mountain to the south. And there's uranium under the mountain, and it was mined a lot in the past for weapons. So there's a lot of contamination still on the mountain, radioactive and other chemicals used for uranium mining. And because there's uranium, it will always be under threat. Because there's uranium there, we know that we're going to have to constantly protect it and work toward stopping mining, because if this mountain continues to be contaminated and if it's radioactive in some places that we want to use either for ceremony or to gather medicine, it's not safe to go to these places. So extraction of uranium, energy issues are not just something to, we're not just talking about climate justice or, greenhouse gases. For us as indigenous people, it's also the protection of these very, very special places for our people that we believe are not only a mountain or part of the environment, but these are beings, these are entities that help us to be strong as people and protect us. And so in order for our people to live long into the future, we need this mountain we also need to protect the mountain and the water and the other sacred elements. For myself, as somebody from the eastern part of the Navajo Nation, my family, my mother and my father, they come from an area around a little town called Crown Point. And so Crown Point, New Mexico is where my family lives, most of my mom's side and my dad's side, because they're from local communities. So this entire area has uranium under it, and there has been mining. Some of my family has been hurt by cancers, kidney disease, and other health problems. And so because of our family connection to the land, this is why I got into the uranium fight, because I want to make sure there's no uranium mining in that area that will hurt all the people. And so as indigenous people in the Southwest, there's several different nations, indigenous nations, who are dealing with threats to their land from extraction. There's uranium, there's coal, there's oil and gas, and there's many fights. There's many activists, there's grassroots people, there's traditional medicine people, and sometimes even our governments are also starting to do more to help to protect us. There's people fighting the fracking, the oil and gas development, and coal. Coal has been one of the biggest fights of Diné people for a long time. So my fight is uranium, and I came here to Germany and to Europe to have more of an international connection with the entire nuclear fuel chain. So for myself, it's really just uranium in my family's land, in the areas on the Navajo Nation within the four sacred mountains. That's my focus. But I also live in the state of New Mexico. And so New Mexico is one of the most nuclear states in the country, but also in the world. We have over 2,000 nuclear weapons stored in Albuquerque, in the Albuquerque area. I live in the city of Albuquerque now temporarily, and then I will move home back to my land. But the entire state has so many nuclear facilities, from weapons factories, uranium enrichment, nuclear waste from weapons, and now we're fighting 2 new nuclear waste dumps that would be for spent fuel from all of the nuclear reactors in the entire country. And so these 2 proposals will impact New Mexico and West Texas, but it will impact the entire United States because of the transport. As an indigenous person, some of the strategies that we use have to balance with our traditional culture, but then we also have our tribal governments that have a type of quasi-sovereignty. And so one of the strategies that I see that's most important is that our Navajo laws are respected. So the Navajo Nation government, we have a law against uranium mining, and we also have a law against transport of radioactive materials. But it's incredibly difficult to stop the transport on state and federal highways and railroads. So right now, our fight is to stop the transport through Diné. The railroad in the United States goes by 2 sacred mountains, and so my greatest concern is if there is an accident when they're transporting high-level radioactive waste, that it could contaminate our sacred places. And so I see a connection for my fight with the people fighting nuclear in Germany, because I see these big actions where people stop the trains or they stop the ships. And I know 50,000 people also stood up to stop transport. And so we look to Germany, some people look to Germany for examples in the climate fight in the United States, especially with nuclear. So I came here to Germany to connect our struggle against uranium mining to the larger anti-nuclear fight in the United States. A lot of our colleagues and activists, we look toward Germany because of the nuclear phase-out. All of the nuclear reactors in Germany are to be shut down in 2022, which is only 4 years away, and this is a huge success. This is great. But I came and I learned that there are many nuclear facilities that continue in Germany. There's enrichment, there's movement of waste and storage of waste, and there's even 25 United States weapons stored on a German military base. And I think the phase out is good, but that's only one part of the entire nuclear fuel chain. In the United States, we fight uranium mining, but we also want to stop nuclear power and nuclear weapons because uranium is the fuel for both. And so it's important to connect our fights, and this can be very difficult because in the anti-nuclear energy fight or the anti-nuclear weapons fight, it's sometimes there's other social issues. There's sometimes a lack of understanding for cultural differences. Sometimes the environmental movement itself can be very racist or sexist or ageist. And so when we want to fight and work together, there's a lot of challenges. But I think for myself as one person, I come from a place where there's many, many people fighting, and we do see the connection between uranium mining and nuclear. And at home, when they're doing mining, if right now there's no mining because we have a law, but any nuclear activity must have coal in order to exist, because the energy in New Mexico has many, many, many nuclear facilities, but we only have less than 20%, about 20% of our electricity comes from nuclear. So the rest is from, and we don't have any nuclear power plants in New Mexico. There is some coming from Arizona, but our energy is based on fossil fuels. And so in order to mine or to mill or to enrich in the Southwest, we need fossil fuels to power the extraction of uranium and to power the enrichment and all of these things. So the fights are connected. We have to work together in some way, not just to stop the weapons and the energy from nuclear, but to stop the coal-fired power plants, to stop coal mining, to stop fracking, to stop liquefied natural gas. And I don't think the answer is just to transfer to renewables. There needs to be a complete change in the system, not just creating energy in a different way, but also reducing our consumption of energy overall. And so I'm here at the climate camp to learn more about the lignite mining and to visit the communities and to hear firsthand from the people and their stories, and also to share my story and to share the story of my people, and to try to see maybe if there's some way not just to have solidarity. Solidarity is very important, but how do we make our fights one? How do I fight lignite mining at home? You know, how do people in Germany take on the fight of uranium mining and help to make both of our fights successful? And so this is a difficult question, and we're not going to know the answer immediately, but I think it's a process to build relationships, to learn about each other's cultures, to learn about not just the struggle, but also to be able to trust and to understand. There's a language barrier, there's a cultural barrier, and there's
transport barrier,
there's a geographical barrier.
And
maybe some people don't support flying across the ocean because that's also part of the problem with pollution. But in order to make the connections, I come here myself in person to talk and to share, and then to go home and continue to share from Germany what I learned here. I take it home, and maybe our people will also be educated on the lignite mine and the forest, and understand that this is all part of the same fight because we're all living on the same Mother Earth. So our people, many indigenous peoples, have the respect for Mother Earth as a being, as a living entity. And so we see like the coal is considered like the liver of Mother Earth. You know, it cleans, it does a job. It needs to be in the ground, and for the sake of Mother Earth, the uranium needs to stay in the ground. Water needs to stay in the ground and not be fracked. All of these parts of our mother, when we start to move them and take them out, it's like removing the liver. And the trees and these things, you know, it's like removing the lung. And so if we continue to take, our mother is going to be hurt. And how can we repair this? I mean, can you really put back a lung? I mean, this is something that it's not possible if we pass a point of no return. In order to address the problems, we need to stop now. We need to stop mining. We need to stop coal mining. We need to stop producing radioactive waste, because it's going to last forever. It's going to last much longer than us as humans. And the best way to stop radioactive waste is to stop uranium mining. Coal mining, uranium mining, fracking, they're all a symptom of a bigger problem. And the problem, it is capitalism. We also have to look at changing the structure of the entire system. If each of us do our part, you know, that's one way to tackle this huge, bigger problem. I think in the anti-nuclear fight, one of the other huge issues that is very challenging is imperialism, because we're not only dealing with the energy issue and climate, we're dealing with domination through use of nuclear weapons. And so this is a huge discussion right now in the world, and our people, you know, we have this very unfortunate situation because of our president. the president has, we don't know what's going to happen with this current administration and some of his ideas. But Obama did sign a Nuclear Modernization Act while he was in office, and I believe I want to write a letter. I always wanted to write this letter. I have not sent a letter to Mr. Obama, but I think he should return his Nobel Peace Prize because he signed a document that puts nuclear into the budget for many decades, billions of dollars to make more nuclear weapons, not just in the United States, but to modernize all of the weapons that the U.S. owns around the world. And in order to stop nuclear, because some of the nuclear energy reactors, they also produce plutonium. So you can't separate nuclear energy, the fight against nuclear power, with the fight against nuclear weapons. They are the same. So we are also talking about something that I think is much bigger. Combined with capitalism is imperialism. And this is also part of the fight. We do our little work on the ground to educate. I go to community meetings, we call them chapter house meetings, and then I explain these things to my people, and they support by signing resolutions. We get documents. I do a lot of policy work, but also we do actions. We do different types of movement activities. No matter how small they are, we're fighting this big monster that none of us can see. And so this is imperative that people understand it's not just capitalism, but it's also imperialism. I think it's a very hard thing to work together and make all our fights one. And so I think in order to move in that direction, we need to start to respect one another and educate ourselves, educate each other on what's culturally appropriate for people. Especially as an Indigenous person, we have many customs, we have many ways that we operate at home in our traditional lives and our daily life. We have to balance the traditional with the modern, but also we have our own strategies as Indigenous people, and sometimes we use ceremonies, sometimes we use prayers, and I think it's imperative for non-Native, non-Indigenous people to have respect when we are sharing stories and sharing our prayers, not to exploit that, and to give us space so that we can operate in our traditional ways, in the fight, in the organizing, in general, but also when we're doing movement building. Sometimes there's special strategies that we have, and I think sometimes non-natives want to infiltrate and be a part of these things. And so I would just ask for respect, to give us space and allow us to do our job. And I think this is also first step to working together. Hi.